All right, so are you ready to explore something completely different this time?
Always up for an adventure.
Me too. This time it's a travelogue through the Himalayas. But
Not your typical travel experience, though, right?
yeah, exactly. It's not about like luxury hotels and tourist spots or anything like that. Our source material follows this Swami Satyana, and he's on this journey that's all about sadhana.
Ah, Satana, that's a word you hear a lot in these circles.
Right, and it could be a little tough to like pin down exactly what it means in English.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a direct translation, but think of it as like a committed spiritual practice, a discipline that goes beyond just casual interest.
I like that, yeah. It's like actively pursuing a spiritual path.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's not just about, the exotic locations or the rituals and
Oh,
practices.
definitely not.
It's about encountering a different way of being in the world, like a different mindset, even.
It's almost like you're stepping into another dimension or something, right?
Totally. And what's interesting is that this journey starts in a place you might not expect.
Okay,
The bustling city of New Delhi at the Katyani
a
Mandir.
city temple.
Yeah, so picture this. You're walking into this crowded temple backpack full of broadcasting gear.
Wow, I could only imagine the looks he must have gotten.
Right, it's like this crazy mix of modern technology and ancient tradition.
You'd think they'd clash, but that's not what happens at all.
Not at all. He was a bit apprehensive about the whole thing, but the guards were so welcoming they even folded their hands in greeting.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? It really sets the tone for the whole trip, this like constant thread of warmth and acceptance.
And it makes you think they're seeing beyond the equipment, right?
Exactly. They recognize the devotion behind it, the intention. That's powerful, I think.
Absolutely. And that respect, it's like woven into every interaction he has at the temple.
Give me an example.
Okay, so there's this one story that really stuck with me. Satyananda recites the Chandi, which is this sacred hymn, and afterwards he offers dakshina to the pujari.
Dakshina, that's like a monetary offering, right?
Exactly, it's an offering of gratitude. So he offers this to the pujari, who's the temple priest.
And what happens?
The pujari refuses it. He says that the recitation itself was gift enough.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
And it's not just like a nice gesture, it reveals something deeper about their worldview.
I see what you mean.
The act of devotion, the sincere engagement with the practice, is valued above any material offering. That's beautiful.
It really challenges us to think about what we truly value in our own lives, right? Are we more focused on the outward show or the inner experience?
Deep stuff. But hold on, because it gets even more intense as the journey continues to Haridwar and this place called Daksha's Mandir.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So picture this, you chanting under this huge banyan tree overlooking the Ganga River. Pretty idyllic, right?
Sounds peaceful.
But here's the twist. A massive storm rolls in while he's in the middle of his sankalpa.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and a sankalpa is like a spiritual vow to recite specific mantras.
So he's in the middle of this vow and a storm hits.
Yeah, talk about commitment. We're talking wind, rain, the lights even go out, and he doesn't budge.
Wow, I'd be scrambling for shelter.
Right. But for a sadhu, these external distractions, they're just part of the practice. It highlights that unwavering focus they cultivate, the way their dedication transcends any obstacle.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, what would it take for us to bring that level of focus to our own lives? What deserves our unwavering attention?
Such a good question. And it's not just about weathering literal storms. There's this other detail that shows just how seriously they take these practices.
Oh, what's that?
Okay, so during another chanting session, Satyananda has to shift his asana for a moment.
His asana meaning?
Oh yeah, his seated position. He just had to adjust it slightly.
Okay.
But afterwards, he performs this prayashchit.
What's a prayashchit?
It's basically an offering of forgiveness for any perceived disruption to the practice.
So even a slight shift in position is seen as a potential disruption.
Exactly. It shows the depth of their commitment, their reverence for the tradition.
It's not just about going through the motions. It's about intentionality and presence in every aspect. And, that level of dedication, it's not just individual. It's often met with incredible support from the community.
That's so true. And speaking of support, that's exactly what we see in action at Anandamayi's ashram. The generosity of the ashram system is on full display here.
How so?
Satyananda and his companions are given free room and board simply out of respect for their commitment to sadhana.
Wow. It really speaks to how spiritual practice is viewed in this culture, right? It's not just a personal pursuit. It's seen as a service to the community itself.
And it's something to be supported and encouraged.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just providing the basic necessities.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Well, the staff at the ashram, they actually urge him and his companions to stay longer. They genuinely want to help facilitate their practice.
That's incredible.
It's like their well-being is tied to the flourishing of spiritual practice. It's a very different way of thinking about things compared to our often individualistic worldview.
Totally. It's like they're saying your practice benefits everyone, so let us support you in any way we can.
I love that interpretation. It really highlights that sense of interconnectedness, a collective upliftment through spiritual practice.
Okay, are you ready to go deeper into the Himalayas now?
Let's do it.
All right, we're heading to Utakashi. Think longer, more intense chanting sessions, combining texts like the Bhagavad Gita and Chandi. We're talking hours of dedicated practice.
That level of dedication is really impressive. It shows the transformative power of consistent practice, how it can deepen and expand over time.
And here's something I found fascinating. Utakashi has excellent internet connectivity, even though it's this remote town.
No way.
Yeah, so he's able to broadcast his practice globally.
That's so interesting. It's like this subtle nod to how technology can intersect with ancient traditions in unexpected ways.
I know, right? Like you're in this secluded Himalayan town, deeply immersed in these ancient practices, and yet you're connected to the whole world.
It's a beautiful blend of the old and the new. It makes you think about the potential for these traditions to reach a wider audience, even while they're being practiced in these incredibly secluded settings.
It's like bridging worlds.
Exactly. And speaking of bridging worlds, we're now reaching the source of the Ganges River, Gangotri.
The descriptions of the mountains and rivers and this special pool called Surya Kund are just breathtaking.
Oh, I bet. It sounds incredible.
It is. But, it's at the Harahar ashram where things get really insightful.
Okay, I'm all ears. The source of a sacred river and ashram. That's got to be a powerful combination.
It is, but what really struck me wasn't like the grandiosity of the place. It was the humility of the sadhus there.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
They're not like vying for attention or trying to outdo each other. It's almost like a race to the bottom in terms of humility. They're constantly praising each other, highlighting each other's accomplishments.
Wow, what a contrast to how we often see success and achievement, right? It's always about being the best, the most recognized. Here, it's about lifting each other up, celebrating each other's growth. It makes you wonder, could this selflessness be a key to their contentment?
It's a mind-blowing concept. And it extends to their interactions with Satyananda, too.
How so?
He initially just wants their blessings, good vibes. But out of respect for their insistent hospitality, he ends up accepting some fruit from them.
That's beautiful. It speaks volumes about how they view giving and receiving.
And we get even more insight during an interview he does at the ashram. He explains that his mission isn't about imposing his own ideas or beliefs.
It's about something else.
Yeah, he's there to support these sadhus, share inspiration, and maybe even collaborate on projects. It's about building bridges, not walls.
That's a powerful approach, and it aligns perfectly with that overall spirit of generosity and service that we've been seeing throughout his journey.
For sure. And, during this interview, he mentions how the sadhus live in these small rooms with very basic amenities.
I can imagine.
It'd be easy to feel sorry for them, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
But he makes this crucial point that really shifted my perspective. He says that this simplicity is their tapasya.
Tapasya meaning?
It's a Sanskrit word for austerity, choosing a simple life as part of their spiritual practice.
So it's a deliberate choice.
Exactly. It's a choice, not a hardship. They're not deprived. They've intentionally chosen this path, this lifestyle.
That's a powerful reframing. It challenges us to consider, could choosing simplicity, letting go of excess, actually lead to greater contentment in our own lives? It's a radical concept in our consumer-driven world.
No kidding. It's like they're saying we don't need all that stuff to be happy. Our joy comes from within, from our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
And speaking of connection, that reminds me of something we touched on earlier, valuing experience over material possessions.
Absolutely. It's not about what you have, it's about how you live.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective, that willingness to embrace simplicity, it's not about deprivation, it's about aligning your life with your values.
I love that. And, it moves the conversation away from pity to respect.
And maybe even a bit of envy, wouldn't you say?
Totally. I'm feeling a little envious myself right now, but it's inspiring too.
It is. It shows us that another way of being is possible, even if it looks radically different from our current reality.
Exactly. And that sense of possibility, that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Agreed. Welcome back. I'm still thinking about that idea of choosing simplicity. It really challenges how we usually think about things.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in that more is better mindset.
For sure. But seeing those sadhus, finding contentment with so little, it makes you question the whole equation.
It really does. And it connects one another big takeaway from this travelogue.
What's that?
Swami Satyananda's emphasis on giving more than you take.
Right. And it wasn't just talk. He really lived it throughout his whole journey.
Yeah, from offering dakshina at the temples to sharing his knowledge, it was like this constant thread.
Yeah, and it wasn't just money either, right?
No, definitely not. It was his time, his energy, even his expertise with broadcasting.
It was a real exchange of value, a way of supporting these traditions and the people who dedicate their lives to them.
And it wasn't about expecting anything in return.
No, it was about contributing to something bigger than himself.
Like planting a seed. you know,
I like that analogy, inspiring others to embrace that same spirit of giving.
creating a ripple effect.
And speaking of positive influences, this brings us back to the power of satsang.
Oh, yeah? Remember how energized Swami Satyananda felt after spending time with Siddharambas?
Even though Sitarandas was dealing with those health challenges.
Yeah, it was like their shared love for sadhana, their connection to something beyond themselves. It transcended all of that.
It really shows the beauty of satsang, you know? It's not just about hanging out with people you like. It's about being with those who uplift you, who share your values.
And it doesn't have to be limited to spiritual seekers in the Himalayas.
Not at all. It could be your book club, your hiking buddies, even your online community.
It's about finding those spaces where you feel a sense of belonging and shared purpose.
Exactly. Like having a support system, people who get you and cheer you on.
And that feeling of being welcomed and supported, that's something that comes up again and again in Swami Satyananda's journey.
Oh, for sure. Think about how warmly he was received at the ashrams, how eager everyone was to share their knowledge with him.
It shows how important hospitality and open-heartedness are.
Yeah, not just in spiritual communities, but in life in general.
Welcoming others into your space, creating a sense of belonging.
And even though Swami Satyananda came from a different tradition and culture, he was embraced.
Yeah, there was this understanding of their shared commitment to sadhana.
It went beyond any superficial differences.
Like they spoke the same language.
It makes you think, how can we cultivate that same openness in our own lives and our own communities?
It's a powerful question. It challenges us to look beyond our differences and see the person in front of us.
And speaking of seeing beyond the surface, this reminds me of how Swami Satyananda talked about finding the divine in the everyday.
Oh yeah, like those cows living in the abandoned houses.
Exactly. It was so funny and endearing.
It's like spirituality is woven into every aspect of life, even the mundane.
And who could forget him riding that donkey up the mountain path?
Carrying all their equipment.
It was hilarious and inspiring at the same time.
It shows that even on a spiritual journey, there's room for laughter and adventure.
And that even sadhus have a sense of humor.
But there were other moments too that stood out, like when Prashant helped that young girl.
Oh yeah, he paid for her to ride a horse up the mountain.
Such a simple act, but so kind.
It speaks to our capacity for empathy and compassion.
And it reminds us to pay attention to those around us.
To recognize when someone needs help.
And that help can come in so many forms.
Right, a kind word, financial assistance, just listening.
It's about being present and available.
And that brings us to our final encounter in Yamunotri.
Nepali Baba.
The sadhu who never left that sacred place.
Even in the harsh winters.
He dedicated his life to sadhana and to serving others.
His lifestyle mirrored Swami Satyananda's commitment, in a way.
And even with his simple lifestyle, he insisted on sending prasad after they left.
That blessed offering.
Again, we see that reciprocal, giving that focus on connection.
It's a reminder that even amidst austerity, there's generosity and love to be shared.
It challenges our ideas about what a rich life really means.
It's not about material possessions, but about inner peace and connection.
It's a powerful message. So what about you, our listener? What's resonating with you?
What are you taking away from this deep dive?
I think what stands out is that spirituality isn't limited to a specific place or practice.
It's about how we treat ourselves and others.
How we connect with something larger than ourselves.
And we can find those moments of sadhana in our own lives.
Through meditation service, creativity, or just being present.
It's about cultivating that inner awareness.
And letting it guide us.
It shifts our focus from achievements to inner transformation.
It feels more sustainable and fulfilling.
And even though this journey took place in the Himalayas, it's an invitation for all of us.
To embark on our own personal pilgrimages.
To seek those moments of connection, generosity, and joy.
In our own unique ways.
It's about bringing those values into our daily lives.
We'll be back with part 3 after a short break.
To explore some final reflections and see if we can find practical ways to integrate these inspiring concepts.
Into our own lives.
Welcome back to our Himalayan adventure. We've been on this fascinating journey exploring generosity, focus, simplicity, and community.
And how those values are lived out by the sadhus that Swami Satyananda met.
Exactly. It's been pretty inspiring, right? Seeing those values in action, the power of sadhana.
Oh, absolutely. But I think the real challenge is figuring out how we apply these ideas to our own lives.
Yeah, I mean, we're not all living in ashrams or chanting for hours a day. So how do we take these beautiful ideals and actually ground them in reality?
Right, because it's easy to feel inspired while we're talking about it, but then we go back to our busy lives and those feelings fade.
So how do we make it stick? How do we integrate these values into our routines and our mindsets?
That's the question, isn't it? Let's get practical.
All right, so I keep thinking about that selfless giving, the sadhu's commitment to it. Maybe we could try doing one small act of kindness every day.
I love that idea.
Just something small, without expecting anything in return.
Right. It could be helping someone with their groceries, paying for someone's coffee, even just a genuine compliment.
It's about shifting our focus from what we can get to what we can give.
And even those small things can make a difference.
It's not about the grand gesture. It's about cultivating that generosity, that willingness to help.
And remember, generosity isn't limited to material things either.
Oh yeah, what else can we give?
Our time, our energy, our attention. Think about volunteering or really being present with your loved ones, just listening without distractions.
Okay, so that's generosity. What about focus? The Sehu's ability to concentrate while chanting, even in a storm, was amazing.
Right, but most of us don't have hours for meditation.
So what can we do?
Even 5 minutes a day makes a difference. Just sit in silence, observe your breath, gently bring your attention back when it wanders.
It's like a mental workout.
Exactly, and we can be more mindful of how we use our time throughout the day, too.
Yeah, like, do we really need to be multitasking all the time?
Could we try focusing on one thing at a time?
Being more present.
And I think this connects with that idea of simplicity. The Setu's choice to live simply reminds us that happiness doesn't come from stuff.
Yeah, it's about finding contentment from within.
So how do we do that?
Well, maybe we start by decluttering our physical spaces, letting go of things we don't need.
That's a great idea. And we can declutter our mental spaces, too.
What do you mean?
Become aware of thoughts and beliefs that aren't serving you and let those go.
Oh, I like that. And maybe we spend less time on social media or consuming news.
Creating more space for stillness and reflection.
Okay, so we've talked about generosity, focus, and simplicity. What about community?
Ah, yes, community. We saw how those sadhus thrived in their ashrams surrounded by like-minded people.
So how do we find that sense of connection in our own lives?
It starts with being mindful of who we spend our time with.
Do they uplift us? Do they inspire us?
And it doesn't have to be people who share all of our beliefs.
Right, it's about shared passions, values, aspiration.
People who motivate us to be our best.
So maybe we join a hiking group or a book club or volunteer for a cause we care about.
It's about finding those spaces where we feel supported, where we can learn and grow together.
So our Himalayan deep dive has been a journey of self-discovery, in a way.
We've explored some pretty deep concepts and hopefully found some inspiration along the way.
And even though we might not be living in the Himalayas, we can still cultivate those values.
Generosity, focus, simplicity, community.
It's a challenge, but it's possible.
Finding those moments of peace, connection, and joy wherever we are.
And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas.
To find what resonates with you.
Make it your own.
This is just the beginning.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to the heart of the Himalayas.